A millionaire kicked his wife out of the house, and 9 years later she returned in a limousine with her triplets. The spring sun bathed the immaculate gardens of Beverly Hills, the most exclusive neighborhood in Los Angeles, when Nathan Thompson's shouts echoed through the contemporary-style mansion. The staff exchanged tense glances, frozen in the corners of the main hall with its Italian marble floors and American-style artwork on the walls. "It's over, Emily. It's over," roared Nathan, the heir to Thompson Textiles, as he dragged designer suitcases down the halls. His face, usually composed for business magazine photos, was twisted with fury. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out, that I'd be made a fool of in my own home?" Emily Carter, 28, remained silent, tears streaming down her delicate face, the same one that had graced some of her husband's company's campaigns. Hailing from humble beginnings in rural Texas, she had won over Los Angeles with her talent for fashion and design, excelling in college and catching Nathan's eye during an internship at Thompson Textiles. "Nathan, for God's sake, let me explain," Emily pleaded, her voice barely a whisper. "It's not what you think, I swear." "Explain what? The emails, the texts, the secret meetings with Daniel?" Nathan flung the last of the suitcases by the mansion's entrance. "My best friend, my business partner, how could you do this to me?" The mention of Daniel Reynolds, a minority partner in the company and Nathan's childhood friend, made Emily turn even paler. "There's nothing between me and Daniel. He was just helping me with—" "Enough lies," Nathan interrupted, slamming the mansion door open violently. Outside, Mrs. Johnson, the housekeeper who had cared for the home for decades, watched the scene with wide eyes, while the chauffeur, Mr. Anderson, pretended to inspect something in the garden to give the couple privacy. "I want you out of my house now," Nathan continued, dragging the suitcases to the sidewalk. "And don't think you'll take a single penny of my money. My lawyers are already preparing everything. You'll leave here exactly as you arrived, with nothing." Emily felt the world crumbling beneath her feet. 3 years of marriage, all. The love she had devoted to this man and the family business, reduced to dust by a baseless accusation. But there was something else, something she didn't yet know, but was quietly growing inside her. "Nathan, we did the fertility treatment just 2 months ago. We can't end things like this," she argued, thinking of the daily injections, the appointments, and the hope they had both shared of starting a family. "The treatment?" Nathan laughed bitterly. "For what? So you can give me children I won't. Even Noah mine." Those words hit Emily like a slap. Unable to respond to the cruelty, she grabbed only her purse and, with the dignity she had left, walked out of the mansion. The neighbors watched discreetly from behind expensive curtains, some already on the phone, spreading the latest scandal in Los Angeles high society. "Mrs. Emily," Mrs. Johnson called, running after her on the sidewalk, ignoring Nathan's furious glare. The gray-haired woman with calloused hands, who had seen Emily arrive as a shy young woman and flourish in the mansion, slipped a piece of paper into her hand. "Mrs. Williams' address. Your old teacher. She has a good heart." Isabella nodded, grateful for the only act of kindness in that moment of humiliation. With trembling steps, she walked away from the mansion, tears blurring her view of Rodeo Drive. She didn't look back, not even when she heard the door slam shut behind her, courtesy of Nathan. The taxi she called took her to Mrs. Williams's modest apartment in Little Tokyo. The 60-year-old woman, who had been her first sewing teacher when she arrived in Los Angeles, welcomed her with open arms, no questions asked. "My dear, what happened?" Between sobs, Emily told her everything. The accusation of betrayal, the supposed evidence Nathan claimed to have, the humiliating expulsion. "But, Mrs. Williams, it's all lies," she insisted, her eyes red. "Daniel was helping me with a surprise project for Nathan's birthday. We were developing a special line inspired by the history of Thompson Textiles." Mrs. Williams made chamomile tea and sat beside her former student. "I believe you, my child. But if Nathan refused to listen—" "He's always been jealous and impulsive," Emily admitted, "but I never imagined it would go this far." In the weeks that followed, Emily tried reaching out to Nathan multiple times, only to be blocked by his security and lawyers. News of her alleged affair with Daniel spread quickly through social and professional circles, closing doors that had once been open to her talent. It was during this dark period that Emily noticed the first signs. The morning sickness, the constant fatigue, the sensitivity. A pharmacy test confirmed it. She was pregnant. The doctor's visit brought an even bigger surprise. It wasn't just one baby, but 3. The fertility treatment had worked, blessing her with triplets. "What am I going to do now, Mrs. Williams?" she asked, staring at the ultrasound showing 3 tiny pulsing dots. The elderly teacher held her hands. "You're going to start over, Emily. Far from here, far from these people. I know a small town in rural Texas, near Santa Fe. My cousin has an empty house there. The cost of living is low. The people are simple, but kind-hearted. And the babies? Should I tell Nathan?" Mrs. Williams hesitated. "After what he did to you, the public humiliation, the way he shut the doors without even hearing you out? Maybe it's better to wait for the dust to settle, for tempers to cool." Emily caressed her still flat belly, where 3 lives were beginning to form. She didn't know it yet, but that decision would mark the start of a 9-year journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and eventually, truths that would change the course of many lives. "I'll go to Texas," she finally decided. "I'll raise my children far from this world of appearances and lies. And one day, when I'm ready, I'll come back to clear my name." What Emily didn't know was that her quiet departure from Los Angeles would only be the first chapter of a much larger story fate was weaving for her and the 3 little hearts she carried. The small town of Sedona, nestled among the mountains of Texas, welcomed Emily with the tranquility promised by its cobblestone streets and colonial-style houses. The home lent by Mrs. Williams' cousin was simple: 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room, and a backyard with jaboticaba trees shading a rustic wooden table. The symbolic rent was the only kindness Emily accepted. Her wounded pride demanded she earn everything else on her own. The first weeks were an adjustment. The quiet of the small town contrasted with the constant buzz of Los Angeles. Without the luxury she was accustomed to, Emily rediscovered simple pleasures: breakfast on the porch watching the sunrise over the mountains, casual conversations with neighbors, and time to sketch without the pressure of corporate deadlines. With the sewing machine she had brought as her only possession from her marriage, a gift from Mrs. Williams, even before she met Nathan, Emily began taking small mending and alteration jobs for locals. Soon, her exceptional skill caught attention. "Miss, where did you learn to sew like this?" asked Mrs. Davis, one of her first customers, as she tried on a refashioned dress that now looked custom-made. "I studied fashion design in Los Angeles," Emily replied simply, omitting her past as a promising designer and wife of one of the country's biggest textile tycoons. Her belly grew quickly, drawing the community's attention. The rumors naturally began. Who was the absent father? Why would such a refined, educated woman be alone in such a small town? But they were replaced by admiration when they saw Emily's determination. "Triplets?" exclaimed Mr. Wilson, the owner of the local grocery store, when Emily shared the news. "And you're raising them alone? What courage!" Courage, Emily would soon learn, was only the beginning of what she'd need. At night, when nausea and discomfort allowed, she sketched by candlelight to save electricity. She created designs inspired by the colors and textures of Texas, the ochre of the mountains, the deep green of the vegetation, the blue of the Texan skies. They weren't just clothes. They were her therapy, her escape, her hope for a better future for the children she carried. In her 5th month of pregnancy, a chance encounter changed her path. Margaret Stewart, the mayor's wife, commissioned a dress for the city's anniversary. Emily Carter created a piece that blended Texan tradition with contemporary touches. A Renaissance lace dress with appliqué, inspired by local Baroque art. "This isn't just a dress, it's a work of art," Margaret marveled during the final fitting. "My daughter Olivia needs to see your work. She's a fashion editor at American Style magazine in Los Angeles." Emily felt a chill run down her spine at the mention of the bustling city. "Thank you, but I'd prefer to keep my work low profile for now." But Margaret, enchanted and determined, took photos of the dress and other designs in Emily's makeshift studio. Don't worry, dear. I'll only show your talent, no personal details. A week later, when Emily was already in her 8th month, a black BMW parked in front of her modest home, causing a stir in the neighborhood. Out stepped Olivia Parker with her designer glasses and the impeccable poise of someone who knew the ins and outs of the national fashion scene. Emily Carter, I'm Olivia, Margaret Stewart's daughter, she introduced herself. Her assessing gaze swept over Emily's swollen belly before she smiled. Mom didn't mention you were expecting, and by the size I'd say it's more than one. Triplets, Emily confirmed, inviting her into the simple house. Just 1 week left until the due date. The meeting Emily had so dreaded ended up being a blessing in disguise. Olivia, unlike the fashion sharks of Los Angeles, was straightforward and honest. She examined each piece of Emily's improvised portfolio with a critical eye. Your technique is flawless, and your vision is unique, she finally declared. This fusion of traditional American style and contemporary design is exactly what our magazine aims to promote, but I have to admit I'm curious. Someone with your talent would usually be in Los Angeles or Paris, not hiding away in Sedona. Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Let's just say I needed a fresh start. Something in Olivia's gaze suggested she understood more than Emily had revealed. Well, perhaps we can offer you a professional fresh start too. We're looking for designers for remote collaborations. You can work from here, sending sketches and overseeing production from a distance. Payment is per piece, but for someone with your talent, it would guarantee a steady income. The offer came at the exact moment Emily's savings were running out. It was a lifeline she couldn't refuse. When can I start? Fan, she asked, feeling the baby's stir as if approving the decision. Given your current condition, Olivia smiled, nodding at her belly, I suggest we begin after the babies are born. I suspect your hands will be quite full for the next few weeks. Exactly. 6 days later, Emily went into labor. The small maternity ward in Sedona rarely handled multiple births, but the medical team prepared with dedication. After 12 hours of labor, Sophia, Isabella, and Ethan were born. 3 healthy Texan babies who, though premature, had lungs strong enough to announce their arrival to the world. 3 perfect little angels, declared Mrs. Taylor, the town's most experienced midwife, as she helped settle the newborns. The oldest girl has her mother's eyes, the youngest looks more like you with her hair, and the little boy, well, he's got his father's strong chin, whoever that may be. The innocent remark made Emily think of Nathan. For a brief moment, she imagined what it would be like if he were there, meeting the children. Would he have regretted his accusations? Would he have believed her if he'd waited to hear her explanation? The memory of her ex-husband's furious face shattered any romantic fantasy. No, Nathan didn't deserve to know these 3 perfect lives that were now her reason for being. The Sedona community rallied to help the new mother. Handmade clothes, cloth diapers, home-cooked meals, and shifts to assist with the triplets made those first months less exhausting than Emily had feared. In return, when the babies turned 2 months old, she began her work for the magazine, creating while the little ones slept. The first payment from American Style allowed Emily to hire Mrs. Harris, a local woman, to help with the babies for a few hours each day. This gave her the chance to increase her creative output, developing a mini collection inspired by Texan traditions. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Thompson Textiles was weathering its own storm. Without Emily's creative touch, the collections lost the originality that had set them apart in the market. Sales began to drop, and Nathan, consumed by bitterness and distrust, withdrew further from daily operations. We need fresh blood in creative direction, Daniel Reynolds argued during a tense board meeting. Ever since Emily left, "Don't say that name," Nathan shouted, slamming the table. "We'll hire an international designer. We don't need her." What Nathan didn't admit was that on lonely nights in the now empty mansion, he reread the supposed evidence of betrayal, trying to reassure himself of his decision. Something always bothered him about those messages and emails, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. In Sedona, oblivious to the crisis in her former home, Emily watched the triplets celebrate their first birthday. Sophia, the eldest by minutes, already showed her mother's determination. Isabella, the youngest, revealed artistic sensitivity, reacting intensely to colors and textures, and Ethan, the only boy, had the analytical curiosity that reminded her of Nathan. "They're your masterpiece," Olivia remarked during a visit to meet the babies in person. "Even more impressive than your creations for the magazine." Emily smiled, watching the three little ones exploring the living room rug. "The difference is, these masterpieces are just beginning. Who knows what the future holds for them?" What Emily didn't realize was that the future held twists that would reconnect paths fate had temporarily separated. But that revelation was still years away, as life in Sedona continued its peaceful course, far from the turbulence of Los Angeles. 3 years had passed since the triplets' arrival. The small house in Sedona had transformed. The second bedroom now held 3 colorful cribs. The living room boasted a work table where Emily designed her pieces, and the backyard had been adapted into a play area, with a handmade swing hanging from the sturdiest jaboticaba tree. "Mommy, look at my drawing," Isabella exclaimed, holding up a paper covered in colorful strokes. At 3, the youngest already showed artistic talent, mixing colors with an intuition rare for her age. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Emily smiled, pausing the sketch she was working on. "What is it?" "It's you making a princess dress," the little girl explained, pointing to scribbles that, with some imagination, could be interpreted as a woman beside a dress form. Sophia, the eldest of the triplets, watched intently as her mother worked, while Ethan took apart and tried to reassemble a wooden toy car he'd received from Mr. Wilson. Each of the 3 already displayed distinct personalities, united by the same radiant smile that secretly reminded Emily of Nathan's in happier times. The phone rang, interrupting the family moment. It was Olivia with surprising news. "Emily, we're finalizing the anniversary issue of the magazine, and the board unanimously decided your rooted collection design will be our cover." Emily's heart raced. The cover of American Style was highly coveted by the biggest names in national and international fashion. This wasn't just recognition, it was a crowning achievement. "Are you sure, Olivia? There are so many established designers who don't have half your talent," Olivia interrupted firmly. "Besides, your story of resilience as a single mother of triplets rebuilding her career in rural Texas is exactly the inspiring message we want to share. America needs to know Emily Carter." Emily hesitated, a shiver running down her spine. "Know me? How exactly?" "An interview, a few photos of you and the kids, if you allow it. Nothing invasive, I promise." The silence on the other end made Olivia realize the dilemma. "Emily, you never talk about the past or the triplets' father. We respect that. The feature will focus only on your work and your life now." After a long breath, Emily agreed. It was time to step out of the shadows, even if only partially. That decision would change her life more than she could imagine. The issue featuring her collection on the cover sold out in 3 days. Her name, previously known only behind the scenes at the magazine, became the talk of the fashion world. The phones wouldn't stop ringing. Invitations to fashion weeks, offers from major brands, opportunities the old Emily would have seized without hesitation. "I can't move to Los Angeles," she explained to a famous brand that insisted on hiring her as creative director. "My children are settled here. We've built a life in Sedona." Instead of accepting outside offers, Emily made a bold decision to invest her growing savings into creating her own atelier. With help from the local community, she transformed an old coffee warehouse into a creative production space that soon employed 10 seamstresses from the region. "I'll call it Rooted Creations," she announced during the small opening, attended by Olivia and a few journalists. "Because it's about honoring our origins while growing. Every piece will carry not just my design, but the craftsmanship that's part of Texas's history." The brand quickly gained recognition for its sustainable approach and fair trade practices. Emily insisted on using local materials, valuing traditional techniques and paying fair wages, practices that, while reducing profit margins, built a solid reputation in the market. As Rooted Creations flourished, Thompson Textiles continued its downward spiral in Los Angeles. Nathan, increasingly isolated and bitter, took refuge in endless meetings and lonely nights in the mansion that once buzzed with Emily's presence. "The last quarter's numbers are alarming," Daniel pointed out during a tense shareholder meeting. "We've lost 30% of our market share in just 2 years. We hired 3 renowned designers. The problem isn't creativity, it's the market," Nathan snapped. "The problem," Daniel said slowly, "is that none of them have the vision Emily had for our brand. She understood Thompson Textiles' DNA better than we did." The mention of that name made Nathan abruptly stand up, ending the meeting. Later, in his office, he absent-mindedly flipped through American Style when his eyes landed on a photo of a smiling woman holding 3 small children in front of a sewing workshop. His blood ran cold. That smile, those eyes, there was no doubt. It was Emily. The article praised designer Emily Carter, her rising brand in rural Texas, and her inspiring journey as a single mother of triplets. Triplets who, based on the ages mentioned and the dates, must have been conceived shortly before the separation. "It can't be," Nathan murmured, carefully examining the photos of the children. Sophia had Emily's eyes, but the determined expression he recognized from his own reflection. Ethan, the boy, had his unmistakable chin and the same way of furrowing his brow when focused. Isabella, the youngest girl, had his smile, exactly like in his own childhood photos. With trembling hands, Nathan called his lawyer. "I want you to investigate everything about Emily Carter and her children," he ordered. "Discreetly. No one can know." The lawyer, accustomed to his client's whims, simply nodded. "Any specific reason for this investigation after so long?" Nathan pushed the magazine toward him. "I believe I have 3. The following months were a period of rapid growth for Rooted Creations. The small team of 10 seamstresses soon expanded to 30. The old warehouse was enlarged, and a training program was established for local young talents. Emily, now a respected entrepreneur, divided her time between designing, managing the business, and above all, the triplets, who had just turned 4. "Mommy, why don't we have a daddy like Johnny at school?" "Where's ours?" Ethan asked one evening during dinner, with the piercing innocence typical of children. Emily froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. It was a question she knew would come eventually, but one she never felt fully prepared to answer. "Some families are different, sweetheart," she replied carefully. "Some have a mommy and a daddy, others just a mommy, others just a daddy, and some have 2 mummies or 2 daddies." "But where's ours?" Sophia pressed, always the most direct of the 3. Emily took a deep breath. "Your father lives far from here in a big city. When you were born, we decided you would stay with me." "Doesn't he like us?" Isabella's question, with her big, teary eyes, broke Emily's heart. "It's not that, darling. It's complicated. One day, when you're older, I'll tell you the whole story." That night, after putting the children to bed, Emily sat on the porch with a cup of chamomile tea, reflecting on the conversation. Since the magazine feature, she had been on alert for the possibility of Nathan finding out about the triplets. Part of her feared that moment. Another part, one she rarely admitted, almost wished for the confrontation, the chance to finally clear her name and show Nathan what his impulsiveness had cost her. What Emily didn't know was that as she gazed at the stars in the Texas sky, in Los Angeles, the private investigator's report was landing in Nathan's hands, confirming his suspicions. Sophia, Ethan, and Isabella Carter, born in Sedona, Texas, were his biological children. Even more unsettling, attached to the report, was a detailed analysis of the supposed evidence of infidelity that had led to Emily's dismissal. The investigator, meticulous, had identified inconsistencies in the dates, manipulated file metadata, and, most damning, a pattern of activity, pointing to Daniel as the true architect of the fabricated evidence. "Mr. Thompson," the report concluded, "the evidence strongly suggests that Daniel Reynolds deliberately orchestrated the situation that led to the breakdown of your marriage. The motives remain speculative, but financial records indicate that, after Mrs. Emily Carter left, his involvement in the company's decisions and profits increased significantly." Nathan let the pages fall onto the table, stunned. 5 years of anger, bitterness, and loneliness based on a lie. 5 years lost from his children's lives. Children he didn't even know existed. The betrayal hadn't come from Emily, but from his closest friend, the man he considered almost a brother. The next morning, while Emily was making breakfast for the Triplets in Sedona, Nathan confronted Daniel in his office at Thompson Textiles, the report in hand. What followed would mark the beginning of a new chapter in all their lives, a chapter of painful truths, unavoidable reunions, and perhaps redemption. How could you do this? Nathan's voice echoed through the glass-walled office as he slammed the report onto Daniel's desk. 5 years, Daniel. 5 years of my life based on a lie you created. Daniel Reynolds, who had been smiling on the phone with an important client moments earlier, paled at the sight of the scattered pages. His expression quickly shifted from shock to resignation. "You wouldn't understand, Nathan," he murmured finally, avoiding his former friend's accusing gaze. "Try me. Explain how you manipulated emails, forged messages, and destroyed my marriage. Explain why you made me push Emily out of my life, pregnant with my children I never knew existed." The mention of the children made Daniel look up, genuinely surprised. "Children? What children?" "Triplets," Nathan replied, tossing the magazine with the photo of Emily and the kids. "Conceived during our fertility treatment, born in Texas, where she rebuilt her life after I humiliated her publicly because of her lies." Ethan sank into his chair, the weight of the revelation hitting him like a physical blow. "I didn't know about any pregnancy, I swear." "Does that make any difference?" Nathan stepped closer, leaning over the table. "Why, Ethan? We'd been friends since childhood, partners, practically brothers." Silence hung between them for long, seconds before Ethan finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "The company was sinking before Emily arrived. You were too busy living as the heir playboy to realize how much we depended on her ideas, her vision. And he hesitated. "I was always just your right hand, never recognized for my contributions." "So you decided to take my company and destroy my family over wounded pride?" The disbelief in Nathan's voice was palpable. "That's not how I planned it," Ethan defended himself. "I just wanted her gone for a while, so you'd realize the value of my work. But then when she left and you started giving me more responsibilities, a bigger share of the profits, I couldn't turn back." Nathan felt sick. Every word confirmed the betrayal, not from Emily, but from this man he'd considered family. In a sudden impulse, she grabbed Daniel by the collar of his Italian suit. "You're going to sign your resignation right now, and then you'll disappear from my life before I decide to sue you for everything you've got." 2 hours later, with Daniel escorted out of the building and a press release announcing his departure for personal reasons, Nathan found himself alone in his office. The magazine with Emily and the children's photo lay open on the desk. 3 pairs of innocent eyes stared back at him from the glossy page. With hesitant fingers, he traced the printed faces. His children. The children Emily had raised alone while he drowned in bitterness and self-destruction. "I need to find them," he decided, reaching for the phone. Meanwhile, in Sedona, a golden sunset bathed the Rooted Creations studio. Emily was overseeing the final touches on the collection that would debut the following month at a special show in Austin, her first major event outside the small town since she'd settled there. "Emily," Olivia called out, visiting to check on the preparations. "An invitation just arrived that you need to see." The embossed envelope bore the logo of New York Fashion Week, the most prestigious fashion event in the country. The contents were even more surprising. An invitation for Rooted Creations to showcase its collection as the breakout brand, with all expenses covered. "This is unexpected," Emily murmured, rereading the letter. "Normally, new brands need years of lobbying to secure a spot like this." Olivia smiled enigmatically. "Your designs speak for themselves. Besides, the industry is desperate for authenticity, for brands with real purpose like yours." What Olivia didn't mention was the call she'd received the week before from one of the event's main sponsors, discreetly inquiring about Rooted Creations' availability, nor the fact that this sponsor was none other than Thompson Textiles itself. I don't know, Olivia, Isabella hesitated. Los Angeles after so long. It's just 5 days, the editor argued. Think of the visibility for your brand, the doors it could open. You don't have to relive the past just because you'll be in the same city. Isabella looked out the window, where the triplets were playing in the garden of the house next to the atelier. Sophia was organizing some kind of game. Ethan was building something with sticks, and Emily was drawing intently, oblivious to her siblings' commotion. Everything I do is for them, she finally said. This opportunity could mean financial security for their future, expansion for the brand, more jobs for our community here. Exactly, Olivia agreed. Besides, it's about time you showed Los Angeles what it missed when you left for Texas. The decision to accept the invitation triggered weeks of intense preparation. The collection, already nearly ready for the Austin event, had to be expanded and adapted to the international standards of New York Fashion Week. New seamstresses were hired and trained in a rush. The small atelier operated day and night. "Mom, can we come too?" Sophia asked during dinner after Isabella announced the upcoming trip. "Of course, sweetheart. I wouldn't spend a single day away from you," Isabella smiled. "We're staying at a beautiful hotel near the park. You're going to love Los Angeles." "Is that where you lived before we were born?" asked Ethan, always observant. Emily nodded, feeling the familiar tightness in her chest. "Yes, I lived there for many years." "And does our dad live there too?" Isabella's innocent question brought silence to the table. Emily took a deep breath. At 5 years old, the children were asking more frequent and specific questions about their absent father. Her vague answers no longer satisfied them. "Yes, I believe so," she answered honestly. "But Los Angeles is a huge city with millions of people. That doesn't mean we'll run into him." "But what if we do?" insisted Sophia, with that determination that reminded her so much of Nathan. "Are we going to pretend we don't know him?" "No. Sweetheart, if that happens, we'll talk like adults. But it's very unlikely, so don't get your hopes up." What Emily couldn't have imagined was that, at that very moment, Nathan was skimming through the event details, where the name, Rooted Creations, designer Emily Carter, was highlighted among the main attractions. Not even that he had already instructed his secretary to reserve the front row for the specific show. The month flew by amid final preparations, and soon the day of departure for Los Angeles arrived. Mrs. Harris, who now supervised production, in the atelier was put in charge of leading the team during Emily's absence. "Take good care of my precious ones," she advised, before getting into the van that would take the small team and a few key pieces to the state capitol. The trip was full of excitement. For the triplets, it was their first time leaving Texas. Every tunnel, every bridge, every city they passed through the window was cause for amazed exclamations. Emily watched their joy with a mix of happiness and nostalgia, remembering her own arrival in Los Angeles years earlier, young and full of dreams. The hotel chosen by the event organizers was close to Central Park, strategically distant from Beverly Hills, where Emily had lived with Nathan. Still, as she caught sight of the city's skyline, she felt a whirlwind of emotions. "Are you okay?" asked Olivia, who was accompanying them, noticing her friend's pallor. "Yes," Emily lied. "Just tired from the trip." The following days were filled with rehearsals, fittings, and last-minute adjustments. Emily barely had time to think about the past, busy ensuring every detail of the presentation was perfect. The children, enchanted by the park near the hotel, spent their mornings exploring under Olivia's supervision while Emily worked. On the afternoon before the show, Emily decided to take a break. "Let's go for a little walk, explore the city," she proposed to the kids. The impromptu outing took them to Bryant Park on 5th Avenue, a choice Emily believed was safe, far enough from the places she used to frequent with Nathan. The kids ran across the lawn while she watched from a bench, finally allowing herself a few silent tears for what might have been. "Kids are amazing, aren't they?" commented an older gentleman who had sat on the same bench watching the children play. "So full of life, so resilient." "Yes, they're my greatest blessing," agreed Emily, discreetly wiping away tears. The man smiled gently. "You know, my daughter would be about your age now. We lost touch years ago. My fault. Foolish pride. Something in the man's voice made Emily look at him more closely. Grey hair, an elegant bearing, deeply sorrowful eyes. "Mr. Thompson?" she murmured, recognizing Nathan's father, whom she'd briefly met during the wedding. The elderly businessman, now retired from running Thompson Textiles, turned in surprise. "Emily, my God, is that you?" That chance encounter, in that specific park, on that specific afternoon, would have consequences neither of them could foresee. Especially because, across the lawn, Ethan had just bumped into a man reading a newspaper on another bench. "Sorry, mister," said the little boy, regaining his balance. The man lowered the newspaper, revealing a face that, though more aged than in the photos Emily had kept, was unmistakable. "It's all right, kid. What's your name?" asked Nathan, completely unaware he was speaking to his own son. "My name is Ethan," the boy answered with the typical confidence of a 5-year-old. "And those are my sisters, Sophia and Isabella. We're triplets." Nathan felt his heart race unevenly. Triplets. The boy had his chin, his eyes. There was no doubt. He was looking at his son. "Nice to meet you, Ethan. He hesitated, a lump forming in his throat. "I'm Nathan." "Ethan, where are you?" Sophia's voice echoed across the lawn as she approached with Isabella. "Mom said not to wander off." The two girls stopped beside their brother, eyeing the stranger with curiosity. Nathan stared at the 3 young faces, recognizing traces of himself and Emily in each of them. It was like looking into a mirror warped by time, showing possibilities that had never come to pass. "Are you from Los Angeles?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "No," Sophia replied protectively. "We're from Sedona, in Texas. We came for Mom's fashion show." "Is your mother a fashion designer?" Nathan pretended to be surprised, though he already knew the answer. "The best in the world," Isabella exclaimed proudly. "She makes beautiful clothes, and tomorrow there's a big show with real models." The conversation was cut short by a shout that pierced the park's air. "Kids, come here right now." Emily had spotted the scene across the lawn and, recognizing Nathan immediately, felt a chill of terror. Mr. Thompson beside her also realized what was happening. "Emily, calm down," the man urged, gripping her arm. This had to happen eventually. "Not like this," she murmured, striding quickly toward the children. "Not without preparation." Nathan stood as he saw her approach. 9 years had passed since that terrible morning when he had thrown her out of the house. The shy young woman he had known had transformed into a confident one, her posture radiating the strength gained through years of solitary struggle. "Emily," he said simply, as she positioned herself protectively in front of the children. "Nathan," she replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Kids, let's go back to the hotel. It's getting late." "But Mom, we were just getting to know the guy," Ethan protested. "He's cool." Emily closed her eyes for a moment, gathering strength. "This is Nathan Thompson," she explained carefully. "Someone I knew a long time ago." "Like your friend?" Isabella asked innocently. Before Emily could respond, Mr. Thompson stepped forward, looking at the triplets with tear-filled eyes. "My grandchildren," he whispered, kneeling to meet the children at their level. "I'm Albert, Nathan's father. That makes me your grandfather." The silence that followed was heavy, weighed down by 9 years of secrets and hurt. The triplets looked confusedly from their grandfather to their father, then to their mother, whose face had gone pale. "Grandpa," murmured Sophia, testing the unfamiliar word on her tongue. "But Mom said our family in Los Angeles didn't want to meet us." The statement hit Nathan like a physical blow. "That's not true," he protested, glaring accusingly at Emily. "I didn't even know you existed." "Not here," Emily interrupted firmly. "Not in front of the kids." "They don't deserve this." Albert intervened with the wisdom of his 70 years. "Emily is right. This is too important a moment to happen like this in a public park. I suggest we all talk somewhere more private." After a tense moment, Emily nodded. "We're staying at the Plaza Hotel. We can talk in the lobby, in a reserved area." the meeting. At the hotel 2 hours later was surreal. Emily had put the triplets in the room to watch cartoons under Olivia's supervision. Olivia, who had listened to the whole story in shock. In the lobby, seated in a secluded area, Emily, Nathan, and Albert tried to process the whirlwind of emotions. "Why didn't you tell me about the pregnancy?" Nathan's first question came after the initial silence became unbearable. Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Seriously? After what you did? The way you humiliated me, threw me out of the house, accusing me of cheating? Why should I have told you?" "I was wrong," Nathan admitted, surprising her. "I recently found out Daniel fabricated all the evidence. He confessed to everything." Emily covered her face with her hands, the tears finally breaking free. 9 years of pain, of fighting to clear a name that had been unjustly tarnished. "All this time," she murmured, "while I rebuilt my life, raised our children alone, you believed I had betrayed you." "And all this time," Nathan countered, "you hid my children from me, denied them the right to know their father." Albert raised his hand, cutting through the rising tension. "You both made mistakes, you both had your reasons, but now you need to think about the children." The old man was right. The mutual accusations wouldn't change the past, nor help the 3 innocent children upstairs, oblivious to the fact that their world was about to change. "What do you want to do now?" Emily asked, wiping her tears. "Show up out of nowhere and announce you're their father? Do you think they'll just accept that?" "No," Nathan replied, surprising her again. "I want to do this right this time. I want to get to know them. Gradually earn their trust, and with your permission be part of their lives." The sincerity in Nathan's words struck Emily deeply. This wasn't the impulsive, arrogant man who had cast her out. The years had changed him too. "We have a lot to talk about," she finally said, "but now I need to focus on tomorrow's fashion show. It's the most important moment for my brand." "To date." "I'll be there," Nathan promised. "Front row. Not to intimidate you, but to show my support." That night was sleepless for Emily. After putting the kids to bed, she spent hours on the hotel balcony, gazing at the illuminated city she once called home. So many unanswered questions, so many mixed emotions. On one hand, she felt vindicated by Daniel's confession. On the other, she feared what Nathan's sudden reappearance might mean for the triplets' emotional stability. The morning of the show arrived with the usual chaos of such events: last-minute adjustments, nervous models, technical issues. Emily threw herself into her work, finding temporary refuge from her personal worries in the familiar world of fashion. Meanwhile, the triplets couldn't stop talking about the previous day's encounter. "Mum, why didn't you ever tell us our dad lives in Los Angeles?" Sophia asked as Emily adjusted the dress her daughter would wear to the show. "It's complicated, sweetheart," she replied, fixing the bow in the girl's hair. "Sometimes adults make mistakes, hurt each other. Your dad and we drifted apart. Before I even knew I was pregnant with you." "Did he not want us?" Ethan's blunt question brought tears to Emily's eyes. "That's not it, my love. He simply didn't know about you. And by the time I found out I was pregnant, we were already so distant that I thought it was better to raise you on my own. But now he knows," Isabella concluded, ever perceptive. "Does that mean we'll have a dad like other kids?" Emily hugged all 3 of them together, feeling the weight of that question. "We'll figure this out step by step calmly. Right now we need to focus on the fashion show, okay? Today is a very important day for Mommy." And it was. Rooted Creations. Show at New York Fashion Week was hailed as the revelation of the event. The fusion of text and craft techniques with contemporary trends, the commitment to sustainability and fair trade, and the inspiring story of its founder won over both critics and the audience alike. From the front row, Nathan watched not just the designs on the runway, but especially the confident woman orchestrating everything backstage. Beside him, the triplets cheered with every model that passed, proud of their mother's work, still not fully grasping that the man in the impeccable suit next to them was their father. After the show, as Emily received congratulations from the press and industry leaders, a surprise waited backstage. Daniel Reynolds, visibly uncomfortable in a setting where he was once a constant presence, stood holding an envelope. "What are you doing here?" Nathan asked coldly when he spotted him while heading backstage to congratulate Emily. "I came to apologize," Daniel replied, his face marked by genuine remorse. "To Emily first, then to you. I brought something that might help." The envelope contained documents detailing how Daniel had manipulated evidence, emails and messages to create the false impression of betrayal. Most importantly, there was a formal confession, notarized, assuming full responsibility for the couple's separation. "Why now?" Emily asked, her hands trembling as she read the documents. "Because I've lived with this guilt for 9 years," Daniel admitted. "Because I didn't just destroy a marriage, I destroyed a family. And because today I saw that despite everything I did, you managed to rebuild your life with dignity while I lost my soul in the process." Daniel's confession closed a painful chapter. It didn't erase the lost years, the tears shed, or the first words and steps of the triplets that Nathan never witnessed. But it offered a path to healing, to forgiveness, to a fresh start. In the months that followed, a fragile reconciliation began to take shape. Not as a couple, the romance had been buried under years of resentment and distrust, but as parents who shared the most important responsibility. Nathan started visiting Sedona regularly, first as Mommy's friend, then gradually stepping into his role as a father. Each of the triplets reacted in their own way. Sophia with cautious skepticism, Ethan with immediate curiosity, and Isabella with a surprising capacity to forgive and accept. A year after their reunion in the park, during the opening of Rooted, Creation's first store in Los Angeles, Nathan surprised everyone with an unexpected announcement: the creation of the New Paths Foundation, dedicated to supporting single mothers in business through mentorship, microloans, and professional training. "This foundation is born from our story," he explained during the ceremony, with Emily and the triplets by his side. "A story that began with a terrible mistake on my part, but one that Emily turned into a journey of resilience through her talent and determination." Emily, moved, added, "And we believe other women in similar situations deserve the chance to transform their lives too. Not through luck or chance, but through real opportunities for professional growth." The triplets, now 6.5 years old, clapped proudly for their parents. There was still much to rebuild. In the relationship between Nathan and his children, emotional scars that would need time to fully heal. But the first and most difficult step had been taken. The truth was finally on the table. Emily and Nathan never became a romantic couple again. That love had been buried on the morning he kicked her out of their home. But over time and through mutual effort, they built something equally valuable: a partnership based on respect and shared love for their children. Rooted Creations continued to grow, becoming one of the most respected brands in the country for its commitment to social and environmental values. Thompson Textiles, under Nathan's new leadership, gradually regained its market position by adopting many of the sustainable practices Emily had pioneered. On a spring afternoon, 9.5 years after their painful separation, Emily watched the triplets playing in the garden of their Sedona home, with Nathan teaching them how to fly a kite. The contrast between that idyllic scene and the memory of the morning she had left Los Angeles with nothing but the clothes on her back was almost surreal. "In the end, everything fell into place, didn't it?" remarked Olivia, who was visiting, to discuss a new collaboration with the magazine. Emily smiled, her eyes fixed on the 4 figures against the blue Texas sky. "Not in the way I imagined, nor in the time I would have liked. But yes, it did." The wounds left by Daniel had healed, though the scars remained. The former partner, after his public confession, had withdrawn from business circles, devoting himself to volunteer work as a form of personal redemption. His betrayal, paradoxically, had forged 2 stronger and more self-aware individuals: Emily, who had discovered a resilience within herself she never knew she had, and Nathan, who had painfully learned the consequences of impulsiveness and arrogance. "You know what's funniest?" Emily reflected. "If we hadn't gone through all of it, the separation, the fresh start in Texas, the years of struggle, I never would have created Rooted Creations. Maybe I would have stayed just the designer at Thompson Textiles, never finding my own voice. And the foundation probably wouldn't exist, Olivia added. Not all the women are being helped right now. Olivia nodded thoughtfully. Not that it justifies the suffering, but it shows we can turn even our worst experiences into something positive. On the lawn, Ethan finally managed to get his kite to fly, sparking cheers from his siblings and a proud hug from Nathan. That image, simple, genuine, filled with quiet happiness, was the true happy ending Olivia had never dared to imagine. It wasn't a fairy tale with a charming prince and a castle. It was a real story with flawed people who had made mistakes, faced consequences, learned hard lessons, and finally found a path to redemption. A story about how sometimes we need to get completely lost to truly find ourselves.